I'm Trey Smith, and in this video we're going to be going over the science of evolution, and we're going to refresh Mr. Richard Dawkins' memory on some events in just a minute, as well as the background and story researched about the smashing of the dinosaur human footprints in Glen Rose, Texas. These are the complete lineup of videos to come right off of the God in a Nutshell Facebook or Trey Smith Facebook page, also on godinanutshell.com. Go over there and hit like, and you'll know when each one becomes available. There is no dinosaur video on the face of this planet Earth like that video. There are growing numbers of you out there who may be getting a little tired and worn out with the old monkey stories. In fact, taking that a step further, many could easily view stuff like this as disrespectful to even the word science. From my point of view, I'm actually very thrilled that they got this Planet of the Apes Monkey Man idol out just under the whistle, and in time to slip its way in to Fossils of Dragons, which should be out about a week after Jurassic, where we are going to go through pre-flood stuff and after the flood stuff, the hardcore stuff that when you look at it, you say that should not be. And of course, entities. And I'm asking, be patient. Let me get it right. Without further ado, let's dive in to the science of evolution right about now. Now, I had the opportunity to call Glenn, which shouldn't take much work on your end to investigate if you're truly interested on who he is and the background behind his journalism. He was largely responsible, the most probably responsible, for all of the articles out there that are pumping out left, right, and center, and even parroted right on to this day, that would insult, demean, and damage anyone that would suggest that the dinosaur human footprints were real.
This is the famous Taylor Trail, perhaps the most renowned trail of alleged human tracks and promoted. But then there are many of these elongated tracks that were mistaken by many locals and creationists, especially years ago, for human tracks, or giant man tracks as they sometimes call them. This was a very famous set of tracks here because you had an alleged human track overlapping a deep and obvious three-toed dinosaur track. Ironically, there was an accusation made that I may have destroyed this track. Well, it's not destroyed. There's no human track to destroy. It's a dinosaur track.
And this man, Glenn, is apparently largely retired now from the vigorous defense of the peripheral problems surrounding the Planet of the Apes world theories. He did have up advertisements that he did paintings and artwork for commissions, which was the context of the phone call. Richard Dawkins, BBC documentary buddy, on the issue of getting rid of this pesky problem of the dinosaur human footprints. Richard, I hate to bring this up, but I think this is probably the part of the video where you they grip onto your chair a little bit tighter, man. I was trying to get Glenn. Yeah, yeah, Glenn. This is my name's Trey. Do you have a few minutes, or did I catch you at an okay time?
I can talk.
I wanted to. Honestly, I wanted to talk to you about two things. I wanted to see if I could if you had time to maybe look at a couple of drawing ideas that I had, that I was looking for somebody to do, if you're still doing that kind of thing.
Well, what do you have in mind exactly?
A couple of things dealing with dinosaurs, actually.
For an article or book?
Around here lies one of the most important collections of dinosaur footprints ever found. And it's also the site of a delightfully absurd shaggy dinosaur story, dreamed up by a powerful cabal of scientific creationists, hell-bent on finding evidence for the biblical story of the origin of life.
Or if you could consider it.
I'd like to hear more about it. What exactly you want drawn, and so tell me more about it.
Well, let me ask you that. Did you used to do the presentations about the dinosaur footprints, didn't you, in Glen Rose years and years back?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've been studying the tracks there for over 30 years, and
Yet 100 million years ago, all this was a tropical, muddy swamp, seething with dinosaurs. The footprints they made were covered in sediment and fossilized. Now time has revealed them through erosion.
Did you ever get to meet? Have you ever met Richard Dawkins?
oh yeah, many years ago he came down with the BBC to film the Biloxi tracks and do a little piece on the controversy about the human footprints, and so he interviewed and filmed me and Ron Hastings and did a little piece on us there. So that was, I'm trying to think, probably 25 years ago, maybe. Something like that.
Well, I tell you what. So that was 25 years ago. That time flies by.
In the 1980s, probably, when he came down. I first published my longer article in the early and mid 1980s, and I believe he came down, shortly afterwards. So it might have been 85, 87.
So you knew Richard. Dawkins.
He never did find any man tracks, but couldn't resist mentioning the Glen Rose manprint myth in the scientific write-up of this monumental find. To his horror, the creationists took it seriously, and the dinosaur farce is still running here 40 years later.
Well, you did some. It's really nice that Richard was, involved in that kind of stuff. You did some of the. I had looked at your stuff and the presentations that you put together, arguing against those footprints being young. Those were those were bar none, the most stellar presentations on the topic that I can find.
I appreciate that. Put a lot of time and work into it, and like I said, I've been for many years working on a full-length book on the subject. It's just going very slow and keeps getting longer. I should put them into it probably. But I'm pretty much done with all the documentation I intend to do in the Biloxi. Many of the tracks are broken away or badly eroded now, and the Taylor site.
Broken away is an understatement, and absolutely right. Here is just one of the tracks. Here is the human footprint, which is inside of dinosaur steps, human steps. These guys are running from something, apparently. Whatever the case, here's what the footprint looks like before. You've got a string of these. Here's what the footprint looks like before. This is the identical footprint afterwards. And that's rock right there. Whatever happened to these footprints had to happen so viciously that it changed that to that. But to me, that's amazing that to even think about that you're working with figures like Richard. I respect him more than I could possibly express. I wanted to talk to. Yeah, go ahead.
It's interesting. At that time, my own views were kind of still evolving, and even though I had kind of spearheaded the refutation of the human footprints there. I was not that long out of college and still, refining my own views. And, for a while I was kind of buying into some of the creation stuff, and then soon realized the earth was very old, and then also, before too long, came to fully accept evolution and the rest of it.
Yeah.
When Richard came down, I remember I was still a little undecided about some things, so we had some spirited discussions about all that, but we were in total agreement about the footprints, because, that was kind of the gist of my work, was refuting what the footprints are. Actually, I could go
Refuting the dinosaur human footprints like it was taken awfully seriously. Now remember, we went from the argument of that the human tracks were carved to our new argument, which would be that you would be stupid to even believe that those were human footprints, because after all, take a look at that. I mean, after all, as Mr. Dawkins would so aptly say, who could possibly believe, looking at that kind of thing, that it was actually a human footprint?
But most tracks aren't that clear-cut. Time has eroded them. Sediment has filled some in. You wouldn't think anyone in their right mind would mistake these for man tracks, yet this is exactly what's happened. Glenn Cuban on the left and Ronnie Hastings are two independent researchers who spent several years trying to convince the gullible that there's a less exotic explanation for the variability in these tracks.
Two tracks that are slightly raised, like the dinosaur footprints, but you can see that they match on either side, but the one on the right looks like something stepped in the back of it, doesn't it? And it's depressed, it's not raised. We'll see there is that duck-shaped dinosaur track that matches the one next to it perfectly, but again, the depressed track within it is just perfect. And if we had enough dark, you could actually count the knuckles and the toes here. And that's in a sequence of 15 in a right-left pattern. Okay, you want some more evidence? It just keeps piling up, and they keep evading.
We discovered that the Eye of Faith can see almost anything it likes in the bed of the Paluxy River. The creationists were fooled by a pathetically small resemblance to a human foot. The random forces of physics, erosion, has worked on the rock to produce such varied shapes that the Eye of Faith and imagination can see almost anything. A religious quest that is as alive today as it was in the early days of opposition to Darwin himself. Because people cannot come to terms with evolution, the blind designer, making all the diversity and complexity of life that they prefer to believe was created by God.
Now, Richard, I just want to make sure that I understand you clearly there. Now, evolution, that is your pronunciation of the word,
as it was in the early days of opposition to Darwin himself. Because people cannot come to terms with evolution.
And I humbly point this out, sir, because atheism, which you are currently sort of the head of, or Darwinism, Lamarckism, all these other little isms, get real stickler about definitions. In my opinion, that's usually to dodge the substance and get caught up in the definitions. For example, I say monkey, they say ape, I say tomato, you say tomato. But on this particular word here that you're stating, the evolution, which you are upset that more people aren't converting to fast enough. The actual definition of this word that you're saying, evolution, so this word, LuCion, that you're telling me you believe in, this is a bright or shining lizard, serpent, or reptilian creature, or some type of entity. I guess I'm not terribly surprised. This theory behind the evolution is sort of the reverse of reality, isn't it? It's stating that things over time self-organize and just get better and better and self-construct all by themselves. Really is the order from chaos cosmology at its heart, its base, its very foundation. It's like an episode of The Twilight Zone. It's the exact opposite. Everything here from the cells to the stars. pretty much the only exception to that rule in a construct that's non-random, mind you, is when you're dealing with actual genetic, tit-for-tat, line-for-line, digital software, which ultimately declines too. It opens up just like a zip file and then starts its slow decline. In one individual's life or collectively, you can actually measure the mutation rate all the way back to the beginning. But everything here, from little tiny cells to the stars in the heavens above, on its timeline, is in fact deteriorating over time, which is exactly the reverse of the entire theory, even without the monkeys. I want to compare apples to apples, make sure we're talking about the identical same thing. To be precise, with no loss of translation between the two of us about exactly what you're talking about and exactly what you're selling me on, this evil yet shining reptile, which has the whole carnival of plastic monkey idols that I'm to come to my knees and bow to, apparently. Now, respectfully, in your defenses of evil LuCion, there in your documentary, Richard, during the times where you're insulting, belittling, demeaning, and just outright mocking at anyone who would look at those footprints that you were saying were erosion and cracks in the earth, you didn't actually show any of the footprints, did you, Mr. Dawkins? Now, it can almost seem like within the context of that particular documentary, and I don't want to be quick to judge, I want to look more, that old evil LuCion had you out on a filthy, well, that's probably not the right word, a bit of a deceptive piece of business. I think, Mr. Dawkins, you would have a terribly difficult time convincing me with a straight face, eye to eye, that while you were there, that you yourself didn't look at the footprints, the very ones I was showing on the screen. However, you did seem to very clearly acknowledge, which I'll play in a second here, that evil LuCion and all of his circus of plastic monkey idols would have to pack his bags and hit the hills if just one of now 80 human footprints with the dinosaur footprints was real. And would certainly sort of maybe appear that you knew about that problem way back 25 years ago when you were out there with Glenn Kuban and you were making a documentary insulting others whilst not showing the evidence that you were insulting. Correct, sir?
Because people cannot come to terms with evolution. They believe the man prints prove Darwin wrong because they show that man and dinosaurs coexisted. Whereas if we evolutionists are right, at least 60 million years separated the last dinosaur from the first human being.
It does sort of seem like the boys down, at least at the Dallas Police Department, not including all of the other evidence, weren't ready, I guess. They didn't get down on their hands and knees to bow to the monkey. As you say, everyone in science must do, to bend over, no pun intended, to the old great god nothing, evil LuCion, who you market so well.
The measly, piddling little ideas that are in Genesis, there's got to be something wrong with them. So you've either got to be staggeringly ignorant, which most of them are, or if you're not ignorant, you've got to be insane. I mean, it's really a really appalling stranglehold that these archaic beliefs have on minds that have been warped since childhood. We have a history of 4 billion years of slow, gradual evolution. Just think about 4 billion years, that we are the heirs of 4 billion years of maybe 3.5 billion years of evolution. And that
Thank you, Satan. would appear that not terribly long after the Dawkins documentary, when the footprints seem to still be in pristine shape, the evidence that those human and dinosaur footprints together were real was certainly growing more and more significant in the evidence at that point. These are images of the Dallas Crime Lab guys out there investigating the footprints. Their conclusion was that these were authentic human footprints. So Rich, before we get back to Glenn, you are telling me, in a nutshell, that you are rock solid, hardcore, dead set, fully invested in the Planet of the Apes world, monkey people thing. You would be best described perhaps as Charles Darwin's biggest cheerleader, the #1 fan in the Charles Darwin fan club. You've got all of your eggs buried in that basket. Your finances, your funding, and your entire career. I got you, man. I'm following you. I see exactly where you're at. Let me ask you this, Rich. Do you have any last words, any last nuggets of Dawkins-style wisdom to lay on us before we get back to Glenn? Anything else to squeeze out of there?
I despise people who believe something without evidence and then go out and take action which damages other people.
There was a report that Glenn, the man who I am on the phone with, had been seen going into the Glen Rose track area with a pipe and breaking up the footprints before hightailing it out of there. Plane tickets, which Glenn appears not to deny, show that he flew in on the day it occurred and then quickly flew back out. This is what the footprints look like before. This is after.
Yeah, going in many different directions now. But anyway, I always have time for, interesting projects. So, I'd be interested in hearing more about what you're up to.
Well, and that's a good. I tell you what, it's an honor to be on a phone with a man that interacted with Richard Dawkins and did the most thorough presentations arguing against the footprints. I've got some cash. You laid on me how much it would cost. What I'd like to do is I'd like to get a large painting with like a big demon. And so a big demon.
I didn't get the large painting with what?
Well, it's got a big. Well, hear me out. You're gonna like the rest of the painting. It's got a big. Okay, so it would have. This is only one of the paintings, but it's got a very large demon in the background, and it's got the footprints underneath.
You say a demon, like a devil you're talking about.
Yeah, this would be, but this is funny. I think you're gonna like it. You've got a demon in the background, and then you've got the footprints that are underneath. So those footprints there at Glen Rose, right there in front of the demon, is you, Glenn, holding an iron pipe and bashing the footprints so that no one can see the human footprints with the dinosaur footprint. No, I'll pay you for the painting. Will you do it? I'll pay you well. I'll get you. You tell me how much you need. So this would be a demon in the background, and you viciously coming at the footprints with an iron pipe and smashing them up, and you can be frothing at the mouth or however you want to do it, Glenn. You can even put Richard popping out from the side of you if you want. Do you want to do it? I'll pay you. I'll pay you good for it.
I feel like what's that old comedy record? Who is this really? I don't really.
No. I'll pay. Listen, I'll pay you very well for it.
Obviously, you run across the rumors about me just doing it.
Glenn, I've seen the before and after shots, man. I'm telling you. Listen, Glenn. I've seen your drawings. You do good work. Look, you destroyed the footprints.
I'm still really confused what this is all about.
Well, no, this is what it's about, man. I told you at the opener of the call. I'm looking for some artwork done, and I could think of nobody better than you to draw the image. You're doing artistry. I'll pay you for it. I'll get you the cash immediately. Draw a picture.
Yeah, I don't really know this all about. Anyway, whoever this is, the track that he was talking about is still there. Doesn't even look that different.
Glenn, That's a heck of a slip, my friend, that they don't look all that different. Yes, Glenn, they look very, very different. Here's the before and here's the after, Glenn. That is an enormous difference. And more than that, the argument has actually become, since it went from this to this, the Darwinist argument is, what idiot would believe that's a human footprint? Glenn, that's what that footprint looked like. Men spent decades, hundreds of men, doctors spent decades excavating out there. And then one single day, footprints went from this to this. And the very men who had invested their lives, their monies, their labors, and their efforts in that site, in diligently documenting it, were changed like that. And in the fight for what? Guys like Richard Dawkins, who you say set you straight. Thanks, Richard. How many people have you set straight? But in the grand fight for guys like this, and the faith in a monkey world,
Trey, what's your last name?
Glenn, I think that you're going to figure out who I am. But I'll tell you this, man. I love you. I love you dearly.
Your voice sounds familiar, but I can't quite.
Yeah, I know. I get that. Glenn, I get that so much. And those tracks look familiar too. Until you were out there with that pipe going to work on them. I'm telling you, Glenn. I'll pay you. Look, man. Look, Glenn. Glenn, listen, you hung out with Richard Dawkins, you destroyed some dinosaur tracks, you used to give the presentations on them. I'm asking you sincerely, give me a number, Glenn. Tell me how much it costs for you to draw yourself, breaking the footprints, breaking the evidence. I think it would be funny for you to draw up a picture of yourself hitting the prints. Well, I want to hang it on my wall. I want a picture. The story is so classical. I can imagine you out there, you got the pipe, and you're smashing that thing, and make it a happy demon, and Richard popping out from the side. $500 for a painting of you, Glenn.
I do some commission artwork sometimes, but I don't think I'd be.
So you won't draw yourself destroying the foot. Glenn, it would be funny. I think it would be fun. Look, it happened 25 years ago. Everybody would get a kick. I'd send a copy to Richard. Richard would laugh about it. Richard would laugh his fool head off because 25 years ago, and here you are, and you smash. You guys hung out together, and you're out there and you smash. I think he would get a kick out of that. I think he would get a real kick out of that. Everybody, look, it's water under the bridge.
It was a good laugh today.
I tell you what, Glenn, you've got my phone number, and you call me back if you want to draw the painting of yourself back when you used to hang out with Richard, depicting in full detail merely the simple scene of the destroying of the footprints. I will honestly pay you if you'll do the drawing. I love you, man. God bless you. God bless you, Glenn. A lot of people have actually done a lot of prayer and shed a lot of tears, big tears, and that's true, Glenn. Over not because of whatever may have happened, and I make no judgment. What may or may not have precisely occurred the day the footprints changed, Lord only knows. In my life, making no judgment on that end, I've certainly made my fair share of decisions that I look back on and just say, wow. But I know this, that there have been a lot of tears, big tears, from people that I know well that love the Lord a lot. Glenn, I don't know you, but long story short, I think you're a good man. I think you are a really good man. They got caught up a long time ago with a really slippery crowd. There's a full write-up on this one over at godinanutshell.com. was up within 2 days of them putting the Monkey Man out. Look, we're not in the 1850s anymore. So my question to you on the other side of the screen, why are we using science in universities? No less, we're using monkey men at universities. Why are we using conspiracy theories from the 1850s, no less, and calling it science? Charles Darwin, this little guy right here, he was a 22-year-old that got on a boat with a degree from Cambridge in theology, no degree in any science whatsoever. Family's trying to figure out something to do with him. They stick him on the HMS Beagle, Her Majesty's ship, trying to find, what are you going to do? He's got a degree in theology, zero science. That's what he's got. You got a guy with a degree in religion trying to teach you about science. And the geological column that they use as evidence for the evolution was written by his pal, Charles Lyell. Darwin's friend, the hardcore Lamarckist attorney, Charles Lyell, who made a career in Darwinism geology. And what an enormous shock that I love Lamarck Lyell over here and his 150-year-old drawings pumped into all of the textbooks, even right now till this day, doesn't exist anywhere in actual reality. When you're living in an hour, when you can look at the genetics, which make a plastic monkey man an impossibility. This dead monkey skull right here on the screen that this man here has his lips smooched up as tight as you can get to. This is their new claimed missing lynx skull, for which they did their modeling and recreations to come out with this. It's a dead monkey's head. It's a pretty basic monkey skull, just like many monkey skulls that you could find in Africa, no less. And through the eyes of this missing lynx founder, it's not his first rodeo. He seems to see a monkey becoming a person in every African set of dead monkey bones that he finds. In this particular episode, we've got them drawn throwing each other into caves. And I've got two things to say about this right here. Number one, it's a little embarrassing, but number two, come on, Lee, get your mouth off the dead monkey. You don't know where that thing's been. Romans 1:25, they exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshipped the creature rather than the Creator. If we couldn't consider that prophecy fulfilled, I don't know what would be. Look, I'm not out to offend. If you're into 150-year-old writings, oh, Purple Haze Darwin, I got dark secrets, he's not going anywhere. And it's a free country, just the present. But I am humbly submitting to your hands that the answers, the real answers, on all scopes and all fronts are much larger, far more colorful, far more fascinating than any Charles Darwin lunchbox. And thank God for that. There are three questions, from my view, that are worthy of your attention. The three most important questions, the three questions that matter most. Who am I? Where did I come from? What happens next? These are the same three questions that one would ask if they woke up in a ditch. And most people live their entire lives distracted and entertained out of ever looking at the most intellectually satisfying questions of all human existence. If you're looking for grant-funded monkey stories, I don't do that. That's what the grant-funded government guys are there for. These are all the strongest documentaries that I've made to date. And in Jurassic, through the lens and scope of the dinosaurs, I felt it was important, critical, to lay out for you the data, not to tell you my opinions, but point by point by point, data after data after data, empirical evidence coming from every possible side, dealing with the 1859 theory of the guy on the boat. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button at the bottom of your screen. There's much more to come. Each thing seemingly larger than the last. I'm Trey Smith, and I hold my case that true science is merely the study of how God does business. God bless every last one of you on the other side of the screen.